Republican Senate, and a beloved Detroit priest comes one step closer to sainthood. We'll talk about the Father Solanus Casey beatification. Today is Sunday, November 12, 2017, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. We emerged from Election Day with the Detroit lineup that many expected going in. Mike Duggan remains mayor, Janice Winfrey remains city clerk, and with the exception of George Cushingberry, who lost in the primary, the rest of the Detroit City Council returns intact. So, no surprises, right? Well, there was a bit of a surprise in the way that city clerk race developed through election night. For most of the evening, the upstart challenger, Garland Gilchrist, held a 10-point lead that, with 3/4 of the vote counted, suggested a big surprise was in the works. But in a furious comeback, Winfrey ended up winning by about 1,400 votes and escaped the upset. Now, that was interesting enough, but then while Gilchrist pondered whether a recount was a good idea, Winfrey posted a meme. Let's just say if it was the NFL, she would have been flagged for taunting. Coming up this morning, we will talk about Detroit's elections. We'll also dig into the bills in Lansing that would allow permit holders to carry guns into places like schools and churches. Now, is that absurd, or is that just common sense after the Texas church shooting? And a little later on this Saturday, Detroit will be the center of the Catholic faith world. Ford Field will host the beatification of Father Solanus Casey, a step towards sainthood for a Detroiter through and through. It's all coming up this morning on Flashpoint. So, as I mentioned, no real surprises, and yet that didn't exactly mean a night without drama on election night. Let's talk about it this morning with Detroit Free Press columnist Rochelle Riley is here. Ingrid Jacques, the deputy editorial page editor from the Detroit News, is here. We got a double deuces of the Detroit News, as you'll see. Chastity Pratt-Dawsey, back from Bridge Magazine, and Nolan Finley, Ingrid's colleague at the Detroit News. Great to have you all here. Rochelle, let me start with you, and I'll start with where we were on the mayor's race. No surprise. It was a big victory, and yet I think the election sort of exposed a lot of people who are still discontent in Detroit. Do we move forward really with a clean slate, or is there still some bitterness here that has to be massaged? Well,
we move forward, but you can't have a clean slate when you have some people who feel like they're not allowed to hold the slate. Yeah. I'm not going to do any Trump-Hillary comparisons, but I think that there are a number of people, about 28%, who voted and did not vote for the status quo or the current progress, while you had 72 who did. I asked the mayor this question on my radio show, and he said that he plans to do what any good mayor would, and that's reach out to those people who weren't necessarily excited to find out how he can make sure they're getting what they need. And we know two of those things. One is more progress in the neighborhoods outside of the 7.2, which is happening, but not happening fast enough. And the other is jobs, making sure that people are getting to work.
Ingrid, I don't know that I would shy away necessarily from the Hillary-Trump comparisons, because what has happened there, it seems to me much more than in years past, is there are a lot of people who are not willing to move on, and people who have dug in their heels and not willing to, it used to be, well, this is my president, and we're kind of, and I've wondered if that was going to infect races in lots of different ways, if we really are going to remain very bitter toward each other and the other side.
You mean focusing on Detroit?
Anywhere, but yes, anywhere? But Detroit through our most recent election, but anywhere. I'm concerned about that right now, yes.
Well, I mean, I think there's reason to be concerned about that. I mean, the current dynamic these days. But I mean, as far as Duggan goes, I think he earned another term, and residents in the city voted pretty clearly that they have his they're in support of him. Yeah. So I was pleased to see that. I think he was the best candidate in the race.
Nolan, you and I were texting that evening, and you made the point that, and this is where we'll get into the clerk's race a little bit, Mike Duggan's numbers stayed very consistent. Didn't matter when they opened the absentee ballots, his numbers stayed, it was a very consistent lead all night. This was a little weird, what you and I were watching happen. And I wouldn't suggest that I'm an election count expert, but I don't remember watching a shift quite like what happened in the clerk's race.
In no other race did you see that sort of shift on election night.
Because the explanation seemed to be that it was the absentee ballots where Janice Winfrey was overwhelmingly.
There were the same number of absentee ballots in every race, and they didn't change the pattern of the voting throughout the day. You pointed out, you looked at the numbers, when it was 73% of the vote in, he Garland Gilchrist had an 11-point lead. The absentee vote gets dumped in for that last 30%, and all of a sudden, Janice Winfrey gets 2-1 of the vote. And I have not seen the absentee ballot track so differently than the live voting. It's usually fairly close. I mean, what changed? What was different among those absentee voters, and why only in that race? I think Garland Gilchrist has reason to want to know what happened here, and to take this a little further, not just with a recount, but an examination of the processes, particularly when the race involves the person who counted the vote and administered the absentee voting.
Exactly right, Chastity.
Process.
When it is the clerk's job to run the election, and then you've got one of the or her opponent raising questions about the way that was conducted, this is sticky.
Absolutely sticky. But I think the thing that to watch is, will he really ask for a recount? First off, a recount is expensive. It's about $250 per precinct. That could be $150,000. And when I looked at his campaign report from October, he didn't have $150,000. Now, he has 2 weeks to raise it if he really wants to do a recount, but it's really sticky. She's counting the votes, and we had a recount last year, and we all know what happened.
Yeah,
we had more voters than, there were people voting, actually, more votes than voters. So
it was a recount that didn't make us feel any better about everything.
The last recount.
It's a huge embarrassment.
And in this case, 15% of the vote now is not recountable, is what I heard the other day.
Which I've never understood.
And
how is
that's-
that
That's
possible?
what if a vote isn't recountable, why was it countable?
Exactly.
Is what I've
Any
always
vote
said.
that's not
Makes sense.
recountable shouldn't be counted at all.
Well, there's things that happen after the votes are boxed and shipped and what have you. But in a case of this, if 15% of the vote isn't recountable, that's 15% of the voters who were disenfranchised if a recount occurs.
And then you wonder, why weren't they recountable? In the last recount, the state said essentially the staff wasn't trained properly, the staff messed up, which means that the clerk's training of the staff, was the problem.
Which she hasn't really taken responsibility for. She always puts the blame on old equipment or it's someone else's fault. So, I mean, I don't think she's really assured us that we're in a better place now to trust the vote. It
threw another log on the fire when the meme came out, a picture of Janet Jackson, and as you can see here, instructions for how to come after me, don't, is basically what it said. Now, Rochelle, her Instagram page is private, but nothing is private anymore. It didn't take long for that to get out, which in a 1 percentage point win seemed to be inappropriate for the time. Is this much ado about nothing, or was that bad form?
Just about the meme, it's bad form. If the whole point is you're trying to thank people who barely reelected you, I wouldn't be too gauche about it and too arrogant. On the other hand, if you don't want somebody to come at you, then you're not worried about a recount. So I hope that he asked for a recount, because I think for the electorate it makes sense, and it's going to make us have a little more trust in the system.
And
but I also think that someone else should count the votes.
And somebody else, I mean, I don't think it should be on a candidate to pay for a recount in these circumstances. If it's a gratuitous recount, yes, but in a race where there's so many, well, you could set standards. You could say underneath a certain margin of victory, or in this case, where again you're talking about the person who counted the vote, administrated the voting, and apparently has time during the process to get on social media and rub people's noses in it. It seems like she ought to have been paying attention to her business.
Be interesting to see if he decides to, because under current law, he'll have to come up with the money to do it. I'd like us to move quickly now, though, to what happened in Lansing this past week. Chastity, really interesting. 2012, the governor had a gun bill, similar gun bill on his desk, vetoed it. The climate's a little bit different maybe after what we saw in Texas at the church shooting. Should permit holders, and these are people who have to go through a degree of training to get this kind of permit, should they be allowed to carry guns in public places like schools and churches?
Well, clearly there were people who went to Lansing to say, no, that's not appropriate. You know what, though, Devin? I think the most interesting thing about this is what you just said. It's not a bill that's going to say anybody with a CPL can carry a concealed weapon. No. It says that you can get an endorsement. That means you have to get 8 more hours of training. And my question is, what are those 8 hours of training? Is it superhero training? How to defend the public? If a bad guy comes into a gun-free zone, what is that training really about? Who's going to pay for it? And really, again, like you said, is the governor going to sign this? He didn't sign it 5 years ago. So, people can argue about it in the background, but he hasn't shown that he's down for this.
Everybody at the table is ready to jump in, and that's the perfect time for me to take a quick break. We'll continue with this. Oh, this is Flashpoint on Local 4. We'll be right back. Back Flashpoint talking about this bill in Lansing that would allow people with the proper permit and the proper endorsement, thank you, on the permit to carry weapons in public places. Everybody was ready to follow up on what Chastity had to say. Ingrid, your thoughts?
Okay, well, I mean, I think you can argue whether this is good timing or not for this this bill to be brought up. I would argue it's probably not good timing. But the bill does allow for schools, universities, they could opt out if they wanted. They could still ban concealed carry. So I mean, I think that's worth noting. But I think this is also a bit of a power trip on Meekhoff's part, the Senate Majority Leader, because he's basically said, well, you know, my name's on the bill this time, and I think maybe Snyder will see it differently. Who knows? But I would like to see the Senate and the legislature as a whole tackle more pressing issues right now. I mean, there's local pensions that need addressed. The school reform office needs an overhaul. Auto insurance reform. So I think their priorities are out of order.
Michelle, your thoughts?
I just think it must be said the Michigan Senate has lost its mind. And Chastity just brought up one of the most important points. This endorsement training, that's the kind of training that everyone should have. But even if everyone has the right training to have a gun, you do not want to turn schools and churches into OK corrals because of something that happened in Texas. My great concern is they're going to convince people that it's a good idea. You might have 10 people converge on a school to try and get one shooter. They all shoot each other, and then we have to wait for that to happen to say, oh, we made a mistake.
There is no getting around the fact that in Texas, it seemed to end when it did because one guy was carrying a gun.
The neighbor
who was able to stop it.
Chased him and stopped him away from the church.
Isn't that sort of an unavoidable?
When you show me a situation where somebody is shooting up a church or a parking lot in Las Vegas or a school, and somebody inside that building or that place stops them, that's one thing. I have no problem.
Where was he headed next?
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. I have no problem with somebody keeping him from going. We don't know if this
guy stopped him from somewhere else.
I have no problem with him stopping him outside the building.
Churches have always had the right to opt out under Michigan law, and we haven't seen any problems in a church since the bill's been passed. Now everybody will have the option to post a sign. I don't think posting a sign saying, oh, by the way, this is a gun-free zone is going to stop someone like Devin Baker or Devin Kelly, evil on earth, walking through that church and shooting people. There is a chance, and a lot of churches have opted in and said, yeah, we want armed parishioners. We can't afford a security team. Even churches with security teams have opted in because they trust their parishioners more than they trust somebody walking in off the street to obey a sign that says gun-free zone.
But Nolan, there's a difference in an armed team who are trained and they're protecting you, and 10 people with guns sitting in the pews.
I'm talking about people sitting in the pews. A lot of churches have had that under the opt-in, and if you're a place that's not comfortable with it, you can opt out. I don't think it's going to make a whit of difference one way or the other.
Well, I think the issue, security team is a provocative phrase.
Well, most of them have.
They do.
The issue is the presumption that these terrorists, or whatever you want to call them, are targeting places where they know people don't have guns, and I don't know that has been proven. They're just crazy.
I don't think they're that rational, but that's the point. They're also not going to obey the law. They're not going to say, well, I can't take my gun in there.
There's a sign there.
Well, too bad.
But you're expecting a degree of rationality then where they think, oh, wait a minute, I can't go do this because somebody might have a gun.
I don't expect that at all. I'm saying I don't think this bill is going to change the dynamic one way or the other. I don't think a shooter is going to obey this law.
I want to get back to something Ingrid brought up earlier about whether or not this is the right time. I can't figure out when the right time is to talk about any of these things, because when we try and bring it up after something happens, everybody says we're politicizing something that's happened, and yet until something happens, nobody seems willing to address it.
No, I mean, that's a fair point, but I just think, you know, days after this horrible thing happens in Texas, we have headlines here saying, you know, Michigan Republicans want guns in preschools and churches. It kind of looks bad, and whether they could also make the argument, well, they're trying to make sure people can protect themselves. I think that has validity, but at the same time.
Well, is it similarly bad to look at immigration policy the day after somebody does something in New York and turns out to have gotten in on a
Sure.
certain
I mean,
visa
there
program?
might never be a good time, and with the uptick in these mass shootings happening, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, no one's predicted these last years.
Got to get to another break. Gang, thanks very much for the conversation. When we come back, we'll talk about a big event coming up in Detroit this Saturday at Ford Field. Sold out, the beatification of Dr. Father Solanus Casey. This is Flashpoint. Huge event coming up at Ford Field this coming Saturday. For only the second time ever, an American-born person will be beatified by the Catholic Church, and it is a Detroiter through and through, Father Solanus Casey. Very happy to have with me two people who do not have time to sit here and talk to me today, to be honest, given all of the things that you've got going on. You've got company coming. But Gerarda Tobin is here, and you're the chair of the beatification ceremony. And Father Larry Weber, and I want to get this right. You're a Capuchin friar, obviously, but you are the vice postulator.
Yes.
That's the correct title.
Right. There are two of us together working here in Detroit. Myself and Brother Richard Merling, who many know, have been working with our postulator, who is in Rome.
And I wanted to start with the long road. I've talked to, over the years, to so many people who've been waiting for this to happen. Try to put into context how long it's taken us to get here. Let me start with you.
Well, actually, this is rather a quick process when you consider
relative terms.
Yes,
right? Yes.
Many are not beatified for 100 years or more.
That's true.
Or more. And so, Father Solanus, this is the 60th anniversary of his death this year. Yeah. So it really is remarkable that in 60 years, his whole process, and it's happened because there has been such an outpouring of devotion and support for him here in Detroit, particularly where he was known.
But a lot of work to try and make this happen.
Oh, yeah.
So this really will be the culmination of a lot of that, Gerarda, for a lot of people.
Yes.
But you look now at the enormity of this, 70,000 people, and people are coming from all over the place. And by the way, that we should point out, it is basically sold out. You're out of luck if you want to try and come, but although it will be televised. We'll explain that later.
Yes.
But tell me, what do you expect this is going to be like for all these people who've been working so hard for this moment, for it finally to arrive?
Well, Devin, we've had a committee that has been working very hard. Volunteer industry experts. Michael Callahan from the Convention Bureau put on a Super Bowl. So he calls this a Catholic Super Bowl, but actually it's even bigger than the Super Bowl. We have Ike McKinnon, Steve Dolan, who have probably 80 years of public safety service together between the two of them working on this. So we've had a number of industry experts helping us, and it's all coming together. And our two focuses were, let's pick a venue where as many people could come as they wanted. We still have people who want to get in, which is amazing.
I guess you needed the big house.
Right. And make it a beautiful event that people, to honor a humble man who did incredible things, and really to focus and honor humble men like Father Larry, who every day in the city of Detroit feeds 1,700 people.
That's a really important part of this. The legacy that you celebrate continues. There will be people being fed during that time because of the work that Father Casey put into it, right?
Right. And many people with him. I mean, what Father Solanus, I'm sure at this point would be saying, yeah, okay, it's fine that you hold me up, but remember, I can't be doing this if there weren't all these other thousands of people that also responded to the call. Just as he has.
And the key on that, Devin, is based solely on donations. So the Capuchins have a roughly $15 million budget where they feed people, they employ people who are released from prison that don't have employment opportunities. They house people, they clothe people, all on donations. So that's
and no federal assistance.
Right, no federal, state, or local assistance.
It's a powerful legacy, and yet that kind of legacy isn't enough for beatification. You've had to, have a miracle sort of verified and proved. To reach sainthood, you would need another. Is that the thought process going forward? Would you?
When we talk about miracles in this process, what we're basically, the church is asking for a sign from God. So it's not Solanus who gives the miracle, it is God who gives it. And it's in the field of creating saints, we talk about God signing the document. The Pope signed the document in May, but he signed it because the church had evidence from God that this man is in his presence in heaven.
But is that the idea then, that you start looking further down the road at that one day?
That's right. And so we already are looking for, and we've had several reports already since the Pope signed the decree in May of people who said, I don't know, this has happened and we can't explain it. So we will be investigating those and hoping that there are many more.
St. Solanus has a nice ring to it. We'll just add that. Gerardo, this is also an interesting family affair for you. Your brother is Cardinal Tobin.
Correct.
One of several cardinals who will be here for this event.
Yes, yes. Joe is the Cardinal of Newark.
Right.
So he'll be coming in. Our 94-year-old mother will be there. We're a family of 13, and hopefully all our siblings
Yes, the Cardinal of Newark is a Detroit native.
Yes, yes, Southwest Detroit, which we're very proud of, and has always had an incredible devotion to Father Solanus.
Logistically, you're trying, and I know this is not obviously what you're thinking about when you start this process, but now you've got a hobnoble gobble going on the night before at Ford Field. You got to turn that around in very little time. So that you can serve communion to 70,000 people. This is this is kind of massive undertaking, isn't it?
And I can
massive emphasis on mass.
Yes, and if I can just indicate how incredibly helpful the people at Ford have been. And they said this is the first time ever that they've turned around an event of this size and magnitude in less than a day. And they have Ferris wheels on,
it's a crazy scene that they'll be.
We're going to have an altar. So we're so appreciative of what they've done in helping us and everybody else that has been involved.
And Father, the other part of this, though, is beyond the spectacle. I know you want this to be and expect this to be an emotional experience for those there, which isn't always easy when you've got 70,000 people around you.
I have been praying that with all the details and everyone trying to get in and the parking, and I'm trusting that the grace of God is going to be powerful that day in Ford Field, and that most of all I am praying that people who come, people who watch, will have truly a graced experience, that really the grace that God has wanted the church to realize through the life and witness of Father Solanus might be evident that day in the lives of everyone, that we'll feel something interiorly.
Gerardo, will you find a way to put all of this work out of the way to have that moment for yourself, you think? Or
Absolutely. As Father Casey would say, I'm thanking God in advance. It's going to be a great day, and I am convinced people are going to use this opportunity as a pilgrimage, as a healing experience, and I think we're creating that environment for our pilgrims, and we certainly, at that point, it's out of our hands, right?
And for those who cannot get into Ford Field, we are going to stream it live on clickondetroit.com. We are also going to carry it on our third channel, 4.3 MeTV here from WDIV. Congratulations on everything that's happened so far, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thank you for being here as well. Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit coming up next, and then after that, it's Meet the Press. We'll see you next time for Flashpoint.